Irina had tried everything to mend her relationship with her mother-in-law, but nothing ever came of it. 2 years had passed already. Galina tormented her deliberately, with a malicious kind of glee, as if she found deep satisfaction in each slight. No, it didn't get easier, even though she cloaked her unpleasant remarks in a pretense of care and politeness. "Ira, dear, please make sure my Volodya always has fresh food. I stopped by while you were at work and everything in the fridge was already moldy. It's bad for your health too, you know," Galina would chirp, blending lies with fake concern. And yet, she knew perfectly well how hard things were for Irina, juggling 2 exhausting jobs since the very day her husband was struck by a car, ending up in casts on both legs. Galina was well aware that the young couple was drowning in mortgage payments and had no savings left. But helping them financially? That was out of the question. No, Ira hadn't expected help. She only wished her mother-in-law would stop interfering and hurting. "There was fresh food in the fridge made just yesterday. And you know how hard it is for me right now, Galina," Ira responded, her tone polite, neutral, barely hinting that if Galina wouldn't help, she should at least not add to their burden. "And there you show your true colors, orphan girl," her mother-in-law replied sharply. "I told my son he shouldn't marry someone from an orphanage. It would have been better if you had parents of your own to help now. But don't count on me. There are plenty of women out there, and only one mother, and our savings are running dry. You haven't even been married long. Who knows if Volodya will stay with you?" When the tall, heavy-set woman with curly gray hair leaned in close to the small, thin daughter-in-law with pink hair, Ira felt a jolt of unease. She had never seen such cruelty wrapped in a motherly disguise. And things only worsened after Ira, with gentle firmness, hinted that Galina might as well take responsibility herself if she cared so much. "Galina, you said you care about your son. Fine. I need to leave on a business trip for 2 weeks. I wasn't going to go, but now that you're here, can I count on you?" Ira didn't show her anger, even though Galina had once again thrown her status as an orphan in her face. One thing was clear: she was a stranger to Galina, and always would be. "And I will gladly take care of my little Volodya," Galina said with sickening sweetness. "You'll see when you come back how much better he'll be. You've let him wither away, poor thing. So pale, so thin. I didn't hand him over to you like that." Hands on her hips, she rattled off a few more unwanted tips, which Ira quietly endured. As soon as Galina left, Volodya hobbled out on crutches. "What now? Are you fighting with my mother again? And where are you off to?" he asked, smiling, completely missing the gravity of the situation. That smile, it pierced Ira like a dagger. It felt like a small betrayal that he had handed over their apartment keys, her apartment keys, without even consulting her. The place they lived in had been paid for with the money from the tiny 1-bedroom apartment the state had given Ira, which she had sold for their mortgage down payment. Month after month, Ira and Volodya had shared the burden until the accident. Now Ira bore it all alone, and she was 3 months pregnant. This business trip was her one chance to negotiate remote work and to give her exhausted body a fighting chance. But would Volodya understand? If she had known things would unravel like this, she would have clung to that shabby little apartment for dear life. Stability would have been worth more than any mortgage dreams. Worse yet, Volodya didn't grasp how serious things were. Ira explained calmly, point by point, but he just frowned and snapped. "Everything's clear. My mother's right. If a man can't provide, only his mother stands by him." "Volodya, please, what are you saying?" Ira's voice broke. She wasn't against his mother. She worked herself to the bone and only wanted a little support, a little protection. Were they not supposed to be one team? Instead, her gentle words only fueled his anger. And Ira, frightened by the darkness she saw growing in him, remembered what her best friend Natasha used to say. "Trust only yourself, Ira. Only yourself." They had grown up together in the orphanage, supporting each other like sisters. Natasha never married. She raised her son alone, cleaning houses to survive. When Ira rushed into marriage and sold her apartment, Natasha had begged her to be cautious. "You have to believe in the man you love, Natasha," Ira had argued back then. "Sure," Natasha had replied quietly. "But remember, men are just people. Life breaks people sometimes. You don't know what someone will become when life gets hard." Ira didn't invite Natasha to her wedding, and Natasha never held a grudge. She was simply there, waiting when Ira needed her most. And now it was clear, Natasha hadn't been pessimistic. She had been realistic. If you're still here with me, feeling Ira's turmoil and resilience, consider giving a gentle tap to the like button. It's a small act, but it helps more than you know to keep these emotional stories alive. Ira had studied remotely while working as a dispatcher in a freight company. It was there she met Volodya, one of the drivers who began courting her with careful attention. Within less than a year, they were married. At the time she was 25, and in her mind, already dangerously close to too old. So when she met this kind, polite man who showered her with small acts of affection, Ira accepted him into her life without much hesitation. Even when he confessed that he had dropped out of college in his 4th year of studying finance, Ira didn't think poorly of him. "Life is unpredictable," she reasoned. "What's important is the heart." Galina, though, was furious that he had wasted her money on a degree he would never earn, and Ira slowly realized Volodya was very much his mother's son, swayed by her every whim. The first warning sign flashed even before the wedding. Volodya had brought an acquaintance to sleep in the office where Ira worked, and the next morning a substantial amount of money was missing. When confronted, Volodya shrugged it off. "Here, don't get upset. You'll find another job easily. What's the point of both of us answering for this?" He promised to pay the debt himself. Ira, heartbroken but determined, didn't tell the boss the truth. She simply paid out of her own savings and cut Volodya out of her life. Or so she thought. 2 months later, he returned with 1/10 of the sum in an envelope, a bouquet of flowers, and an apology. Ira didn't forgive him right away, but clinging to hope, she finally let him back into her heart. She didn't even notice, not truly, that he never repaid the rest. She told herself, "We're about to marry. What's the point of keeping score?" Another major betrayal came soon after the wedding. Their plan had been simple. Ira would sell her 1-bedroom apartment to pay part of the mortgage. Volodya would add money from his share of an apartment his mother had promised him. But when the time came, Volodya confessed, blushing with shame, that he had signed over his share to his mother instead. She needed an urgent surgery, he said. Later, Ira realized there had been no surgery and no intention of returning the money. And so the doubts began to gnaw at her. Was it worse to be betrayed by theft or by foolishness? Still, she pressed on, clinging to hope, but it got worse. Volodya became jealous, paranoid even. After his accident, every time Ira traveled for work, he seemed to believe she was meeting someone else. A month ago, she had even overheard Galina whispering in the kitchen, "Are you sure the baby is yours?" The crash of a dropped cup followed. Ira froze where she stood, aching to hear Volodya's voice rise up to defend her. "But no. Mom," he had whispered, "you know, these days you can't trust anyone. We'll do a DNA test after the baby's born. No big deal. Anyway, Urka pays the mortgage, so I'm not losing anything." Her head had spun. She tried desperately to excuse it. Maybe he was just trying to calm his mother, not thinking. But the bitter truth seeped in. She was living with a man who had weighed her worth in dollars and cents and attached himself to her out of convenience. Day by day, the situation gnawed at her nerves, corroded her trust, drained her spirit. Still, Ira clung to a fragile hope. Maybe, if she could step away for a little while, breathe, think, things would somehow right themselves again. That's why she told Volodya firmly, "Tomorrow, I'm going back to work. This is not up for discussion. Your mother promised to care for you. When I return, we will talk. If you don't consider your husband's opinion, then there's no need for any conversation, he snapped, turning away with a bitterness Ira had never seen before. And so, it seemed, she would soon join the ranks of single mothers, divorced, abandoned. Still, some stubborn part of her heart whispered, maybe he was just overwhelmed. Maybe he would understand once she was gone for a little while. Quietly, without ceremony, Ira packed a small suitcase and left. Not to the business trip just yet, but to her friend Natasha's place. 2 days passed in a strange sort of peace. Natasha, ever the steady anchor, offered quiet support. They keep calling me, Ira confessed guiltily. They're being kind. It feels wrong to think badly of them. Natasha shook her head. Oh, Urka, I'm afraid you're not exaggerating your problems. If anything, you're underestimating them. Still, Ira hoped. Against all odds, she hoped. Before she left for the train station, Natasha hugged her tight. Whatever happens, remember, you will never be alone. You have me. If you're feeling Ira's resilience, her fragile hope battling overwhelming odds, give a soft nod to the like button. Sometimes the smallest gestures carry the most powerful support. Ira arrived at the train station early, as she always did. With her sunglasses and a sun hat pulled low, she flipped through a magazine, trying to steady her racing heart. That's when she heard a voice she knew all too well. Yes, Volodya, son, I'm already at the station. I'll call you once I arrive. It was Galina, standing so close, so engrossed in her call that she didn't even notice Ira sitting right there. Ira stayed perfectly still, catching every word, and what she heard chilled her to the bone. Don't worry, Galina cooed. I'll talk to Oleg and we'll collect the money for your wife. It'll come in handy once you two are divorced. Then came a giggle, sharp, cutting, a sound no one would mistake for kindness. Ira's heart pounded in her ears. Oleg! Who was Oleg? It didn't matter. She had heard enough. She decided then and there she wouldn't board the train. She would stay, and she would find out what was really going on. And fate seemed determined to help her. Galina, without her contact lenses, asked a passerby for the time, and in the process revealed she would be taking the same train Ira had originally planned to board. A stroke of luck. Ira booked herself a seat in the same car, and so she sat quietly, listening to Galina boast to her fellow travelers about how unlucky she had been with her daughter-in-law. She leeches off our money, lives in our apartment, probably cheats on my poor son, and expects him to pay child support for a baby that may not even be his. Galina sighed dramatically. A few strangers clucked their tongues in sympathy. Ira clenched her fists. She could have stood up, exposed the truth right then and there, about how Galina had gotten pregnant by a married man once upon a time, about how she had never worked a real job in her life. But what would it change? Strangers' judgment didn't matter. The truth, her own truth, was what mattered. When Galina finally got off the train, Ira followed. A taxi ride later, they arrived at a gated community filled with luxurious homes. Galina rang the intercom. I'm here to see Oleg Yegorovich, she announced. A low male voice responded, and after a pause, a tall, fit man appeared at the gate. Ira gasped. It was Oleg, the boy who had been adopted from the orphanage when they were about 14. Older now, of course, mature, commanding, but unmistakably him. The same clear blue eyes, the same small birthmark near his cheek. The past came flooding back. Memories of a boy who had once defended her from bullies, from cruel teachers, who had once loved her in a way no one else had. From her distant vantage, she watched Galina talk, plead, wipe fake tears from her cheeks, and then saw Oleg hand her a thick envelope. Money. They argued briefly. Oleg shook his head, turned and left without even inviting Galina inside. It was then that Ira knew she couldn't stay in the shadows any longer. She approached the gate. I'm looking for Oleg, she told the guard. We grew up together, at the orphanage. Within minutes, Oleg appeared again. His face froze in shock. Ira, he breathed. Galina told me you were dying. How? He shook his head as if trying to clear it, then quickly invited her inside. Please come in. Whatever happened, I'm so relieved you're alive. The house was warm, inviting, nothing like the cold extravagance of most mansions. When they sat down and the housekeeper set the table, Ira asked the question burning in her mind. Oleg, why did my mother-in-law come to see you? He hesitated, then confessed. I've been in love with you since we were kids, but my mother took me abroad for years. When I finally came back, I started searching for you. I found your address, but when I showed up, Galina answered the door. She told me that you were terribly ill, needed an expensive operation. She promised if I gave her the money, I could visit you later. Oleg looked down, ashamed. I gave it, because I couldn't stand the thought of losing you without even seeing you again. Ira's heart broke, not for herself, but for the pure, trusting love Oleg still carried. And my husband? She asked quietly. Oleg's silence was enough of an answer. Irina burst into tears. She hated how it looked, hated feeling weak in front of him, but the dam had broken. Hey, Oleg murmured, gently taking her hand. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You didn't deceive me. I'll help you. I want to. If you've stayed with Ira this far, if your heart aches for the injustices she's endured and the pure hope blooming anew, please consider tapping the like button. Your support helps these stories of strength and redemption continue to be told. Before Ira could compose herself, a firm yet warm female voice called out from behind, Oleg, dear, don't keep your guest standing. She must be exhausted from her trip. The room is ready for her. Ira turned and saw a petite woman in a cream-colored suit sitting gracefully in a wheelchair. And in an instant she knew this was Oleg's mother. Years ago, in the orphanage, Oleg had spoken of her, the woman who had fought back from a terrible accident to reclaim her life and her family's legacy, Elena Yegorovna. Come sit with us, Elena said warmly. You must be starving. Let's have dinner and talk things through. No rush, no pressure. Ira started to mumble that she couldn't impose, that she needed to return to work, but Elena only smiled. Listen, sweetheart. I wasn't eavesdropping, she said. I simply have good ears. Running off won't solve anything. Trust me, one day won't cost you your job. Even if it did, sometimes losing something small is how we win something bigger. There was such quiet strength in her words that Ira, who had fought so long to stand on her own, found herself surrendering, just for a moment, to the peace offered. She stayed, and for the first time in what felt like years, she slept without fear. A week later, Ira returned to the apartment she had once called home, but her key no longer worked. Someone had changed the locks. She called Volodya. It was Galina who answered. Don't bother my son anymore, she snapped. He's divorcing you. We'll pay the mortgage ourselves now, after we settle the property, of course. Ira swallowed her pride. Could I at least speak to Volodya personally? There was a muffled scuffle, and finally, her husband's voice came through, small and miserable. Ira, I don't love you anymore. It was hard to say it in person. And the child, Volodya? Will you repay the money I put toward our home? Half of everything. There was silence. Then a string of excuses. Well, once the baby's born, we'll see. You know how it is. I have to take care of my health, my recovery. Ira closed her eyes, feeling the last fragile thread snap. You know what, she said quietly. You're not even ashamed of lying, are you? Before he could answer, Galina grabbed the phone. Call the police if you want. Open the door, But if you make a scene, don't expect Volodya to lift a finger to help you." Ira smiled grimly. "Don't worry, I won't." And she called the police. They arrived quickly, broke the lock, and allowed her inside to collect her things. Strangely, she felt no sorrow, only a calm, tired relief. Naturally, there were no savings left in the apartment. Everything of value was gone. Oleg's bodyguard helped her load her belongings into the trunk of a sleek SUV. As they were about to leave, Galina pulled up, red-faced and raging. "I knew it!" she shrieked. "You have a lover! You planned this all along, seducing some rich man to take care of you." Ira turned, standing tall, the cool wind catching her hair. "You're right about one thing," she said calmly. "Oleg is a real man, and unlike you, he doesn't make me feel ashamed." Galina gasped, but said nothing more. Because in that moment, Ira wasn't broken anymore. She was free. If you believe that every storm can clear the path to brighter skies, if Ira's quiet triumph resonates in your heart, don't forget to give a like. Sometimes standing up tall after being broken is the greatest victory of all. Ira didn't move in with Oleg right away. She chose instead to stay with Natasha, who welcomed her without hesitation. Oleg's mother, Elena, had already offered her remote work, managing logistics for a network of companies she oversaw, giving Ira the opportunity to earn her own living with dignity and independence. "I can't just move into a rich man's house like a burden," Ira confessed one night to Natasha, her voice thick with emotion. "It feels wrong, like I'm taking advantage." Natasha smiled sadly. "Oh, Urka, after all you've suffered, maybe it's finally time to accept a little happiness. Don't push it away just because you're afraid it's real." This time, Natasha's words didn't sound like a warning. They sounded like a blessing. And so, piece by piece, Ira rebuilt her life. The divorce was long and bitter. But with the help of Oleg's lawyer, Ira gathered all the proof she needed, that she had contributed the majority to their home, that Galina had taken Oleg's money under false pretenses. There was even security footage from Oleg's estate showing the exchange. In the end, Ira recovered her investment and her freedom. When her daughter was born, she didn't even bother to inform Volodya. There was no need. He had already made his choice. Besides, he had been relieved when rumors swirled that the child might not be his. No alimony, no responsibility, just the way he preferred it. "Forget him," Natasha told her, "just as he wiped you from his life. Wipe him from yours." And Ira did. Slowly, she began to believe in happiness again. A year later, she and Oleg married. They bought a new home, not a cold mansion, but a warm, light-filled house where love lived in every corner. Her daughter now had a little brother. They visited Elena every week, filling her home with laughter and chatter and the patter of little feet. "Sometimes," Ira confessed to Oleg, "I was scared to live with a mother-in-law again." He laughed. "My mother? You kidding? She'll spoil them both rotten, and us too." As for Volodya and Galina, they fared less well. Volodya, refusing to work, burned through the last of Galina's savings. Then came the fire, a reckless stunt with his drinking buddies that left the old apartment half destroyed. Galina, broke and broken, had no choice but to move in with her son permanently, watching helplessly as he grew more bitter and cruel with each passing year. Once, Volodya even tried to find Ira, but the guards at Elena's estate didn't let him pass the gates. It was over. Truly, fully over. And Ira? She stood on the porch of her new home, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors she never thought she'd see again, feeling her little son clutch her hand and her daughter giggle nearby. She smiled at Oleg, who met her gaze with that same steady love he had offered her all those years ago in the orphanage. Some journeys are longer than we ever expected. Some storms feel endless. But sometimes, when you least expect it, life gives you a second chance to be happy. Thank you for staying with Ira's story until the very end. If her journey touched your heart, please consider supporting with a simple thumbs up. It means more than you know. And if you too are looking for a way to reclaim your strength, your energy, and your confidence, be sure to check the video description. There, you'll discover something extraordinary, a recent natural finding, an unusual purple shell that researchers believe can help triple fat burning even while you sleep. No harsh diets, no grueling exercise, just a simple way to finally feel at home in your own body again.